Michael Torres looked at his reflection in the mirror. His face, usually serious, was even more so today. He was a brave agent for the DEA, a special police group that stops bad guys from selling drugs. For many years, Michael had pretended to be a bad guy himself, just to get close to a very dangerous group called a cartel. This was his most important and riskiest job yet. His mission was simple, but incredibly hard. Find a secret drug lord known only as El Pastor. No one knew what El Pastor looked like, but Michael had a tip. El Pastor would be at a huge, fancy wedding in a city called Guadalajara, deep in Mexico. It was a wedding for one of the cartel's own, a big party full of dangerous people. Michael had to go, blend in, and watch everyone carefully. He put on a very expensive suit, not his usual clothes. He would pretend to be a rich man from another country, a foreign investor, looking to put money into new businesses. This was his cover, his fake identity. He had practiced his new name, his new story, and even how he would walk and talk. Every small detail mattered. One wrong look, one wrong word, and his years of hard work could be for nothing. Worse, he could lose his life. He took a deep breath. The car was waiting. It was time to go. The expensive car glided through tall iron gates, pulling up to a grand estate shimmering under the Mexican sun. Michael stepped out, adjusting the cuff of his tailored suit. He looked like a rich businessman, just as he planned. Fountains sprayed water high into the air, and soft music drifted from the open doorways of the huge house. But Michael didn't let the beauty fool him. He knew this place was filled with danger. He walked past fancy tables loaded with food and drinks. Everywhere he looked, there were people dressed in their best clothes. Some laughed loudly, their faces friendly. But Michael saw their eyes. He saw the way some men stood a little too stiff, with bumps under their jackets that looked like hidden guns. These were the cartel members, the bad guys he was trying to catch. Michael smiled and nodded at people, making polite small talk when he had to. But his real work was to watch, to listen. He moved slowly through the crowd, like a hunter looking for prey. He studied every face, every gesture. Who looked important? Who did people listen to? Was El Pastor a loud man or quiet? Did he stand out or did he hide in plain sight? Michael felt the weight of his mission with every step. He had to find the secret boss without anyone knowing he was a cop. The air felt thick with secrets, and Michael knew one wrong move could be his last. Michael had been watching the faces for what felt like hours, a cold detective mask hiding his thoughts. He saw a man with a gold watch who seemed to give orders, and another who stayed quiet but whose eyes missed nothing. He was getting closer to understanding the cartel's inner circle. Then, the music changed. A sweet, slow melody filled the air, signaling the start of the ceremony. All eyes turned to the grand archway where the bride would appear. Michael turned too, ready to scan the groom's side for El Pastor, assuming the drug lord would be close to the wedding party. The crowd hushed. A beautiful woman in a flowing white dress began to walk slowly down the long aisle. Her face was hidden by a thin veil at first, but as she stepped into the soft sunlight, a breeze lifted the lace. Michael's breath caught in his throat. His entire body froze. It couldn't be. His mind screamed no, but his eyes told him yes. The bride, the woman walking towards the altar, was Isabella. Her dark hair, her bright eyes, the way she carried herself, it was all too familiar. Isabella, the girl he had loved years ago, before the DEA, before the undercover work, before he disappeared from her life. She knew his real name, his old life, everything he was hiding. A cold dread, far worse than any fear of the cartel, washed over him. His secret identity, his mission, everything now hung by a single, terrifying thread. Begin. The world spun around Michael, but he forced himself to look away from Isabella. He had to act normal, even as his heart hammered against his ribs. He turned his attention back to the groom, a burly man with a cold stare, trying to appear interested in the ceremony. Yet, he could feel Isabella's eyes on him, even from the distance of the aisle. Her surprise would soon turn to questions, and then, perhaps, to danger. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, Michael made sure to keep his distance. He mingled, shaking hands, forcing smiles, all while keeping one eye on Isabella. But it was no use. She was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. He felt a tap on his shoulder. "Michael." Her voice was a soft whisper, but it cut through the buzz of the party like a knife. He turned slowly, forcing a blank look onto his face. "I think you have me mistaken," he said, using the fake accent he'd practiced. "My name is Mr. Smith. A pleasure to meet you." Isabella's eyes, once full of love, now held a mix of shock and a flicker of anger. "Don't play games with me, Michael. I know it's you. What are you doing here?" Her voice was low but firm. He knew he had to lie, and lie well. "Isabella? My goodness, it's been years. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you at first. You look wonderful. I'm here on business, an investment opportunity. What a surprise to see you." He hoped his fake surprise sounded real enough, praying she wouldn't see through his act. His life depended on it. And begin. Even with Isabella's surprising appearance, Michael couldn't forget his real mission. He had to keep looking for El Pastor. He quickly tried to smooth things over with Isabella, promising to catch up later, then turned his attention back to the powerful people at the wedding. He needed to find out who held the most power, who everyone looked up to. He watched a man with a diamond pinky ring, who laughed loudly and slapped backs. People seemed to listen to him, but with a hint of fear in their eyes. Then there was a quiet woman in the corner, always with a few stern-looking men around her. She didn't speak much, but when she did, everyone else stopped talking. Michael wondered if El Pastor was a man or a woman, a loud boss or a silent one. He saw the groom, who seemed happy, but also a little nervous. He was always looking over his shoulder, as if waiting for someone important to arrive or to approve of his actions. Michael noticed that some people were quick to serve the groom, but others seemed to serve someone else, someone unseen. Michael kept moving, pretending to enjoy the party, while his eyes darted from group to group. He picked up snippets of conversation, words like the shipment, the new route, and the boss's orders. Every piece of information, no matter how small, could lead him to El Pastor. The real game was just beginning. Begin. Michael was trying to blend in, sipping champagne and nodding at strangers, when Isabella found him again. She led him to a quieter part of the garden, away from the music and the crowd. Her eyes were serious, no longer just surprised. "Michael," she began, her voice low and firm. "Don't play games. I know you. You disappeared for years. Everyone thought you were gone for good. And now you're here, at this wedding, pretending to be someone else." Her gaze sharpened. "I remember you talking about something you were doing, something risky. You said it was important for your future, but you couldn't tell me details. Was it something about a special job? Something with the government?" Michael's blood ran cold. She was getting too close. The old memories, the vague hints he'd dropped years ago, were coming back to her. If she remembered his work, even a little, his cover would be blown. He had to stop her right now. "Isabella, please," he interrupted, trying to sound a little hurt, a little confused. "I don't know what you're talking about. My past is my past. I've moved on. I'm a businessman now, a legitimate one. I invest in big projects. Perhaps you're thinking of someone else? Or maybe your memories are playing tricks on you after all these years." He looked around quickly, making sure no one was listening too closely. He grabbed her hand, a gesture of false familiarity. "Come, let's get you another drink. It's a wedding after all. Let's celebrate." He pulled her gently but firmly back towards the main party, hoping the noise and activity would distract her from her dangerous thoughts. Begin. Even as he pretended to enjoy the party, Michael's ears and eyes were working overtime. He drifted near a group of men in sharp suits. One of them, a heavy-set man with a scar near his eye, spoke in hushed tones. "El Pastor expects a full report by morning. Everything needs to be in place." Another nodded, then subtly adjusted a small, ornate lapel pin. Michael noticed others in the room wearing similar pins. It wasn't just a decoration, it was a symbol. He saw the groom glance often towards a specific table in the corner where a quiet, older woman sat. She rarely spoke, but when she did, the men around her stiffened, listening with great respect. They would nod, then disperse to carry out unseen tasks. One of them returned to her, whispering something that made her lips twitch into a faint, knowing smile. Her eyes, though, were sharp and missed nothing. Later, Michael overheard two waiters talking in the kitchen, one complaining about the old woman's picky tastes and how even the boss caters to her. He saw the man with the pinky ring, the one who seemed to be in charge of everyone, approach this quiet woman and bow slightly before speaking to her. The pieces clicked. El Pastor wasn't a loud, flashy leader. El Pastor was the quiet woman in the corner, the one everyone, even the groom and the loud enforcers, deferred to. She was the shepherd, and these dangerous men were her flock. The realization sent a chill down Michael's spine. And Michael's mind reeled with the revelation about El Pastor, the quiet old woman. It made a twisted kind of sense. He was trying to figure out his next move, how to get closer to her, when a sudden crash shattered the festive atmosphere. Across the sprawling garden, near a row of ornate bushes, shouts erupted. Two men, previously laughing and drinking, were now locked in a violent struggle. One of them, a bulky man with a shaved head, slammed the other against a stone pillar. A glass bottle shattered on the ground. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Most froze, wide-eyed, while a few of the cartel's enforcers quickly moved towards the disturbance. The fight was brutal and fast. Fists flew, a sickening thud echoed, and one man crumpled to the ground, blood already seeping onto the white cobblestones. The other, breathing heavily, stood over him, a dark, cold look in his eyes. Before anyone could truly react, the enforcers were there. They dragged the unconscious man away like a sack of potatoes, and the victor was led off, his face still hard as stone. The music, which had stopped for a moment, slowly started again, as if nothing had happened. Guests nervously picked up their conversations, but a new tension hung in the air. This sudden burst of violence, quickly cleaned up and forgotten by most, was a chilling reminder to Michael. These weren't just party-goers. They were ruthless people, and life was cheap. It showed him just how dangerous El Pastor's world truly was, and how thin the line was between celebration and brutality. The chilling display of violence had just settled, leaving a nervous hum in the air. Michael was trying to regain his focus on El Pastor, but then he felt a hand on his arm. It was Isabella, her grip firm, her eyes flashing with a mix of fear and anger. She pulled him away from the main crowd, towards a dimly lit alcove near the sprawling rose garden. "Enough, Michael," she hissed, her voice barely a whisper but full of fire. "The Mr. Smith act isn't working. I saw the way you looked at the bride. I saw your face when those men fought. You're not just a rich investor here for a party. You never were just a normal guy. You always had secrets, even back then." Her eyes narrowed, and a dangerous glint appeared. "I've been thinking, really thinking about why you disappeared, why you're here. You mentioned something about a job that took you far away, something dangerous but important. Something about fighting big bad guys. My family has been involved in things, Michael. I know what these people are like. You're not one of them. You're trying to catch them, aren't you? You're a cop." Michael's heart pounded. She was closer than ever before. He tried to speak, to deny it, but she cut him off. "If you don't tell me the truth right now, I swear I will tell everyone here who you really are. And then we'll both find out how quickly they deal with outsiders who pretend to be their friends." Her threat hung heavy in the air, a terrifying promise. The threat from Isabella hung in the air, cold and sharp. Michael knew he was in deep trouble. He had to think fast, but his mind raced, trying to find a way out of this impossible situation. Just as he was about to speak, a shadow fell over them. A large, imposing man, one of the cartel's head security guards, stood a few feet away. He had eyes like chips of ice and a stern, unmoving face. Michael had noticed him earlier, always positioned perfectly to see everything. The guard had been watching them for a moment too long, his gaze lingering on Michael. Michael felt a prickle of unease. In his panic, trying to formulate a response to Isabella, Michael's hand instinctively went to his jacket pocket. It was a habit from his DEA training, a quick check for his hidden communication device. The small bulge under his expensive suit jacket was barely noticeable, but the guard's eyes, sharp and trained, flickered to it for a fraction of a second. Michael froze. He had made a mistake, a small, almost invisible one, but to someone like this guard, it was a red flag. The guard's gaze hardened, a flicker of suspicion in his cold eyes. He took a slow step closer. Michael knew he had to act immediately. He forced a wide, fake smile, pulling Isabella closer and laughing a little too loudly. "My dear, you are so funny. Always teasing me," he said, loud enough for the guard to hear. He quickly pulled out his phone, not the hidden device, but his cover phone. "Ah, forgive me, my love. I must check this message. Business calls, you know." He made a show of looking at his phone, using the distraction to move Isabella and himself away from the guard's direct line of sight, hoping the guard would dismiss it as a lover's playful spat. And begin. The near miss with the guard, coupled with Isabella's growing suspicion, pushed Michael. He needed to act, and fast. His mission wasn't just to identify El Pastor, but to gather enough proof to bring her down. And now, with Isabella's presence, the clock was ticking louder than ever. He couldn't risk her exposing him, nor could he leave without finishing his job. He watched El Pastor, the quiet, old woman, from a distance. She sat at a place of honor, accepting congratulations with a serene, almost regal air. Her power was subtle, a quiet hum beneath the surface of the loud celebration. Michael realized that to truly confirm her identity and expose her, he needed to make her react, to force her to show her true colors, even for a moment. He thought about the wedding traditions. There would be toasts, speeches, perhaps a dance of honor. He needed to create a situation that would demand El Pastor's direct involvement, something that would pull her out of the shadows. A bold move was required. He decided to leverage his foreign investor persona. He would approach the groom, claiming a desire to make a grand gesture, a toast, perhaps, to the new couple and their powerful family. He would make sure his words were heard by everyone, especially El Pastor. The plan was risky, bordering on reckless. It meant stepping into the spotlight, drawing attention to himself when he should be fading into the background. But it was the only way he could think of to force El Pastor to reveal herself in a way that couldn't be ignored. He walked towards the groom, a confident, slightly arrogant smile on his face, ready to put his plan into motion. And begin. Michael smoothly approached the groom, his practiced smile in place. "My sincerest congratulations," he began, his voice confident and clear. "As a foreign investor, deeply impressed by the hospitality and the strength of this family, I would be honored to offer a small toast to the happy couple and their formidable future." The groom, flattered by the attention from a supposed rich outsider, readily agreed. Michael raised his glass, commanding the attention of the gathering. He spoke eloquently about partnerships and prosperity, subtly weaving in phrases about leadership and respect, all while keeping his eyes on the quiet old woman, El Pastor. He ended his toast with a flourish, to a future built on strength, wisdom, and an unwavering vision, led by those who truly guide the way. As he lowered his glass, he saw it. El Pastor, who had remained perfectly still and composed throughout the wedding, made a tiny, almost imperceptible gesture. Her right hand, resting on her lap, slowly tightened into a fist. A quick, sharp look passed between her and the groom, a look of command, not just approval. Her eyes, usually veiled, now held a cold, calculating intensity. It was the confirmation Michael needed. The slight tightening of the hand, the imperceptible flicker in her eyes, spoke volumes. She was indeed El Pastor. But then, the quiet woman did something else. Her eyes, which had met Michael's for a fleeting second, held his gaze just a moment too long. A knowing smirk, quick as a flash, played on her lips. It wasn't a smile of amusement. It was a smile of recognition, a silent challenge. She knew. She knew he was watching her, knew he had figured it out. And that knowledge put Michael in even deeper, more immediate danger than he could have imagined. And begin. The air crackled with the silent understanding between Michael and El Pastor. Her knowing smirk was a clear message. Asterisk, I see you. Asterisk before Michael could even process the depth of this new danger. A sudden, sharp crack ripped through the music and laughter. Then another, louder this time. Gunshots. Chaos erupted. People screamed, glasses shattered, and the elegant wedding guests scattered like startled birds. The once beautiful garden turned into a frantic mess of running bodies and overturned tables. Michael instinctively dropped to one knee, pulling Isabella down with him behind a large marble statue. More shots rang out, closer now. It wasn't just a fight, it was an ambush. Lights flickered and died, plunging parts of the garden into darkness, punctuated by flashes of muzzle fire. Michael saw armed men, not the usual cartel security, but unknown figures, advancing rapidly from the edges of the property. They wore dark clothes and moved with deadly purpose. They weren't after the guests. They were targeting the cartel members. Michael was caught in the middle. His mind raced. Was this a rival gang? A betrayal from within? He had to stay hidden to survive this. He was a DEA agent, not a soldier in a cartel war. He peered through the gaps in the statue, trying to make sense of the bloody scene. The groom, who had been laughing moments ago, was now shouting orders, his face a mask of fury and fear. El Pastor, surprisingly, remained calm, her eyes still sharp, even as her bodyguards formed a tight circle around her. Michael gripped Isabella's arm, pulling her closer, praying they wouldn't be seen. The wedding had become a war zone. End. Begin. Isabella huddled close to Michael behind the statue, her body trembling not just from fear, but from the raw reality of the violence around them. She had threatened to expose him, but now, seeing him in true danger, a different feeling took over. She watched as Michael, despite the chaos, remained strangely calm, his eyes scanning the scene, assessing the threats like a soldier. He wasn't the fake businessman she had seen earlier. He was the man she remembered, the one who was always ready for anything. A bullet whizzed past, chipping the marble above their heads. Isabella flinched, but Michael pulled her tighter, shielding her. In that moment, she understood. He wasn't just a cop. He was a good man, risking everything against these monsters. Her anger faded, replaced by a fierce surge of protectiveness. She knew what the cartel did to people who crossed them, and Michael, if discovered, would face a fate worse than death. She saw two of the attackers, dark figures moving swiftly, heading directly towards their hiding spot. They were sweeping the area, checking every possible cover. Michael was about to move, to find a new place to hide, when Isabella made her choice. "Stay here," she whispered, her voice surprisingly steady. Before Michael could react, she pushed herself away from him, drawing a deep breath. "Help! Over here! Someone's hurt!" she cried out, her voice loud and clear, carrying above the gunfire. She then slumped dramatically against the statue, pretending to be injured, drawing the attention of the approaching gunmen away from Michael. The two attackers immediately changed direction, heading towards her. Michael stared, stunned. She had chosen to draw fire, to put herself in harm's way, to protect him. It was a shocking act of self-sacrifice, a decision that would change everything. End. Begin. Isabella's brave act bought Michael precious seconds. The two gunmen rushed towards her, their attention diverted. Michael seized the opportunity, using the confusion to slip away from the statue, moving silently through the shadows and overturned furniture. He had to get El Pastor to secure her, or at least get proof. He moved towards the main house, where he'd last seen El Pastor surrounded by her guards. The sounds of the battle raged behind him. As he rounded a corner, a figure lunged out from the darkness. It was the stern-faced guard who had watched him earlier, the one whose suspicions he'd almost confirmed. The guard's eyes were cold and furious. "You are no investor," the guard growled, blocking Michael's path. "You are an outsider." Gulp. He pulled out a large, gleaming knife. Michael's cover was completely blown. He was cornered deep within enemy territory, with no backup and a trained killer blocking his escape. Just then, a voice echoed through the chaos, clear and strong. cutting through the gunfire and screams. "Leave him, Mateo. He is ours." Michael's head snapped towards the sound. Standing on a balcony overlooking the garden, framed by the flickering lights of the mansion, was Isabella. But not the injured Isabella from moments ago. This Isabella was calm, composed, and held a small, ornate lapel pin, identical to the ones worn by El Pastor's inner circle, between her fingers. Her eyes met Michael's, not with love or anger, but with a chilling, calculating coldness that mirrored El Pastor's. "Welcome home, Michael," she said, her voice laced with a dark, triumphant satisfaction. Or should I say, Agent Torres. Michael's blood ran cold. Isabella wasn't just a former lover, a victim, or even a reluctant ally. She was one of them. His life, his mission, everything he thought he knew, hung by a single, terrifying thread, now completely exposed to the very people he had sworn to take down. And